Amid the gentle hills of Cova da Iria, in the parish of Fatima, Portugal, 3 shepherd children tended their flocks beneath the spring sky of 1917. Their names were Lucia dos Santos, Francisco Marto, and Jacinta Marto, small in years, yet chosen by God for a great mission. The world was immersed in the anguish of the First World War, and humanity's cries rose to heaven amid violence and disbelief. Portugal faced its own spiritual crisis, with anti-clericalism gaining strength after the Republic was proclaimed in 1910. Lucia, the eldest of the 3 visionaries, was born on 22nd March 1907 in Aljustrel, a simple village near Fatima. From an early age she showed piety and discernment beyond her years, instructed in the faith by her mother and local priests. Francisco and Jacinta, her cousins, born in 1908 and 1910 respectively, were siblings of pure soul, inclined to prayer and compassion, traits that soon marked them as souls chosen by God for great sufferings and consolations. On 13th of May 1917, while shepherding sheep in Cova da Iria, the 3 little ones saw a flash of lightning, followed by an intense light above a small holm oak. In the midst of that light, there appeared to them a lady of resplendent beauty, dressed in white. "Do not be afraid," the lady said in a gentle voice. "I will not harm you." The children were enthralled by the vision, and Lucia, as spokeswoman, asked where she came from and what she desired. The lady replied that she came from heaven and asked them to return to the same place on the 13th of the next 5 months. She also asked that they pray the rosary every day for peace in the world and for an end to the war. News of the apparition spread quickly, and despite the disbelief of many, people began to flock to Cova da Iria in search of consolation, miracles, and hope amid the chaos of war and religious persecution. On the 13th of June, the lady appeared again. This time she revealed to the children that Francisco and Jacinta would soon be taken to heaven, whereas Lucia was to remain longer on earth to spread devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The children accepted the announcement docilely, though Francisco and Jacinta showed a serene joy at knowing they would soon be with God, while Lucia felt the weight of the mission entrusted to her. The lady showed them visions of her Immaculate Heart, surrounded by thorns, a symbol of the offenses committed against her maternal love, asking for the consecration of souls and reparation through prayer and sacrifice. On 13th of July, the 3rd apparition was marked by even deeper revelations. The Virgin showed the 3 visionaries a vision of hell, an abyss of flames and demons into which desperate souls were falling. After this terrifying vision, Our Lady said, "To save souls, God wishes to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart," and she announced that if mankind did not convert, an even worse war would come. This message, known as part of the Secret of Fatima, included prophecies about the Second World War, the suffering of the Church, the persecution of the just, and later, the need for the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart. The children kept these messages faithfully. Although only between 7 and 10 years old, they understood the gravity of the Virgin's words and gave themselves ever more to penance and prayer. In August, the apparition did not occur on the 13th, for the children were detained by civil authorities who sought to extract the secrets from them. Even under pressure, the little ones remained silent, resisting with heroic courage. The lady then appeared to them on the 19th at a place called Valinhos. Our Lady's sadness over the children's imprisonment was evident, but she reaffirmed the call to prayer and penance, promising abundant graces. In September, a crowd of more than 20,000 people gathered at Cova da Iria, Despite the disbelief of many, including clergy, the people's faith grew with each new encounter, sustained by heavenly signs and spiritual and physical cures. Our Lady promised a visible miracle for the following month so that all might believe. Strengthened, the children prepared with more prayer, while tensions rose between believers and skeptics. On 13th October 1917, more than 70,000 people assembled at Cova da Iria amid heavy rain and mud. At the appointed hour, Lucia cried out, "Look at the sun!" The sky opened, and the sun began to spin like a silver disc. The phenomenon, known as the miracle of the sun, was witnessed by believers and non-believers, journalists and scientists alike, and caused great commotion. Many converted on the spot, convinced by the evidence of the supernatural. While the people watched the miracle, the children had visions of Saint Joseph with the child Jesus blessing the world, and of the Virgin under different titles. The message was clear. God intervenes in human history through Mary. With the end of the apparitions, the children's lives changed profoundly. Jacinta and Francisco began to live with greater penance, offering sacrifices even in the smallest daily gestures, moved by a burning love for Jesus and Mary. Francisco, silent and contemplative, spent hours in silent adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, while Jacinta, sensitive to sinners' suffering, prayed incessantly for their conversion. Lucia, for her part, found herself called to a long path of witness. While her two cousins became gravely ill, she began her journey as propagator of the Fatima message, already marked by the cross of separation. The year 1918 brought with it the shadows of the Spanish flu, which would claim millions of lives worldwide. Francisco and Jacinta were struck by the disease, as had been foretold by the Lady of Fatima. Francisco bore the illness with impressive serenity, never complaining, offering each pain for the conversion of sinners and to console the heart of Jesus, whom he loved so much in silence and prayer. Jacinta, meanwhile, was consumed by an inner flame. Even amid severe pain, she repeated that she wished to suffer greatly, to save sinners and to make reparation for offenses against the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The girl had visions of future wars, of the Pope praying and suffering, and of the moral decay of the world. Moved, she insisted on warning everyone, even adults, about the need for conversion and penance. On 4th April 1919, Francisco returned his soul to God at just 10 years old. His death was peaceful, like the falling asleep of the just, and his fame for sanctity quickly spread among neighbors and priests. Jacinta, more fragile, held on until February 1920, being transferred to Lisbon, where she was hospitalized. There she underwent painful surgeries without anesthesia, offering everything with supernatural maturity. In her last days, Jacinta revealed profound mysteries, saying that war was a punishment for sin and that the world needed to be consecrated to Mary. She died alone, as she had foretold, yet with her heart united to heaven. The early deaths of Francisco and Jacinta left a deep mark on the faithful. People venerated them as little saints, and their stories moved even the most skeptical, touched by their surrender and heroic faith. Lucia, now alone, entered the Sisters of St. Dorothy School in Villar with the support of the Bishop of Leiria. There she continued her spiritual formation, cultivating obedience and silent prayer. Despite her desire to remain hidden, Lucia was sought out by ecclesiastical authorities and the people who wished to understand the Fatima messages better. Always humble, she spoke only what was necessary, with caution and precision. In 1925, in Pontevedra, Spain, Lucia had another apparition. The Most Holy Virgin, accompanied by the child Jesus, requested the reparatory devotion of the first Saturdays as a way to console her Immaculate Heart. This devotion consists of receiving communion, going to confession, praying the rosary, and meditating on the mysteries for 5 consecutive Saturdays in a spirit of reparation. A new call of hope opened for the faithful. A few years later, in 1929, at the convent of Tuy, Lucia experienced another mystical vision. She saw the Most Holy Trinity and Our Lady, who reiterated the request for the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart. The message was clear. The world's peace depended on the Church's and the faithful's response to this heavenly request. Our Lady warned that if it were not fulfilled, Russia would spread her errors throughout the world. Lucia wrote these messages to her confessors and to the bishop, who transmitted them to the Holy See. However, political difficulties and the Church's prudence meant that the consecration took time to be fully realized. From the 1930s onward, Fatima's fame grew. Pilgrims began visiting Cova da Iria more frequently, and the Church, after a thorough investigation, recognized the veracity of the apparitions in 1930. With official recognition, devotion to Our Lady of Fatima spread worldwide. Churches and chapels were dedicated to her, and the message of praying the rosary and converting won new hearts. In 1940, in the midst of the Second World War, Lucia wrote to Pope Pius V, reiterating the request for Russia's consecration. The Holy Father, attentive, consecrated the world to the Immaculate Heart in 1942. That consecration brought consolation, but Our Lady had asked specifically for Russia in union with the world's bishops. Only in 1984, under St. John Paul II, would the request be fully met. During this time, Lucia withdrew even more. In 1948, she entered the Carmel of St. Teresa in Coimbra, taking the name Sister Maria Lucia of the Immaculate Heart. As a discalced Carmelite, she gave herself to a life of prayer, penance, and silence, keeping correspondence with popes and bishops and writing her memoirs out of obedience. Those memoirs, especially the first 4, brought to light precious details of the apparitions and of Francisco and Jacinta's interior lives, reinforcing the authenticity of the Fatima message. The third secret, the final part of the July 1917 message, remained sealed for decades. It was written by Lucia in 1944 and delivered to the Vatican, where it remained guarded until the year 2000. Speculation about the secret's content grew. Many thought it concerned the end of the world or a great apostasy. The Church, prudent, awaited the right moment for its revelation. During the Jubilee of 2000, St. John Paul II, a deep devotee of Our Lady of Fatima, revealed the content of the third secret, interpreting it as a symbolic vision of the Church's martyrdom in the 20th century. The third secret, finally disclosed, showed a bishop dressed in white, walking among the bodies of martyrs until being killed by soldiers, along with many clerics and faithful. It was an image of the Church's suffering. The Vatican, when presenting the vision, declared that the assassination attempt on St. John Paul II on 13 May 1981 was a symbolic fulfillment of the secret, and that Fatima's message remained timely as a call to conversion. The attempt on the Pope, on the very date of the first Fatima apparition, occurred in St. Peter's Square. St. John Paul II attributed his survival to the direct intercession of Our Lady. In gratitude, the Holy Father insisted that the bullet that nearly took his life be set into the crown of Our Lady of Fatima's image, now venerated at the Portuguese shrine. St. John Paul II visited Fatima several times, and on 13th of May 2000 beatified Francisco and Jacinta Marto before a multitude of faithful, an official recognition of their sanctity by the Church. The beatification caused great emotion among devotees, who saw in it confirmation that Fatima's message was not merely an appeal, but a school of sanctity, even for the very young. Sister Lucia, elderly, attended the celebration, visibly moved. Her silent witness through decades now shone before the world, sealed by her cousin's beatification. From that moment, the sanctuary of Fatima became an even greater center of worldwide pilgrimage, receiving millions of visitors annually from every continent. The original image of Our Lady, sculpted according to Lucia's description, became an icon of consolation and hope, carried in solemn processions and visits to nations at war or in spiritual crisis. Sister Lucia continued living in the Carmel of Coimbra until her death on 13th of February 2005, a few months before St. John Paul II. Her passing closed a cycle of witness begun in 1917. Pope Benedict XVI authorized in 2008 the opening of her cause for beatification, even before the usual 5-year period, recognizing the spiritual value of her mission as heaven's messenger. Over the decades, the Church has understood that Fatima's message was not limited to a warning for its own time, but was a continual call to conversion, prayer, and penance for every generation. The Rosary, central to Our Lady's message, was promoted with new fervor. Families were called to pray it daily as a shield against the dangers of the modern world and as a spiritual weapon of salvation. Consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, requested by Our Lady, became an ever more widespread practice, with many movements and parishes promoting it as a means of union with Christ. Through the years, successive popes reaffirmed Fatima's importance. Benedict XVI visited the shrine in 2010, saying that the message was still unfolding and that moral dangers continued to threaten the world. He warned that humanity's greatest dangers did not arise from outside, but from the sin that dwells in the human heart. Thus Fatima remained a prophetic light amid the darkness of the times. Fatima's spirituality today inspires thousands of faithful to seek a deeper interior life, marked by daily offering of sacrifices and intercession for sinners' conversion. Francisco and Jacinta were canonized on 13th of May 2017, the centenary of the apparitions, by Pope Francis. They became the youngest non-martyr saints in church history to be canonized. That canonization reaffirmed that childhood is no obstacle to holiness, and that purity, suffering accepted with love, and obedience to God are sure paths to heaven. The celebration was followed by millions around the world, united in praying the Rosary and in the hope that Fatima's message will lead the world to the peace promised by Mary. Sister Lucia remains a central figure in spreading that message. Her letters and writings are studied with care, for they reveal the depth of her union with God. Many of Our Lady's warnings, wars, persecution of the Church, attacks on family and Christian morality, were fulfilled during the 20th century and continue as challenges of the 21st. Fatima is not merely history past, it is living prophecy. In every rosary recited, in every act of reparation, the message continues to echo as an invitation to conversion and a shield against evil. The shepherd children, with their brief and intense lives, are models of heroic faith and total abandonment to God's will. They showed the world that holiness is possible at any age. And Our Lady, with her maternal and merciful presence, continues to guide her children with the tenderness of one who never tires of interceding for us, leading us to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Over recent years, Fatima's presence in the Church's life has become a spiritual pillar, especially in times of crisis and confusion. Many bishops and faithful recognize that Mary's message remains a remedy for humanity's ills. Each 13 May, thousands of pilgrims walk to Cova da Iria in prayer, many barefoot or on their knees, fulfilling promises and offering sacrifices. The shrine has become a beating heart of faith for the Catholic world. The light that shone upon the holm oak has not been extinguished. It is reflected in every candle lit, every rosary prayed, every act of conversion that springs from the appeal of a mother concerned for her children. The Chapel of the Apparitions, built in 1919, remains to this day the most symbolic place of the shrine. There, faithful from every land kneel before the image representing the Lady dressed in white. The sanctuary has expanded over time, including the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary, where rest the bodies of Saints Francisco, Jacinta, and the servant of God, Sister Lucia, a silent testimony to eternity. The shrine's vast square fills with Marian hymns, candlelight processions, and prayers in many languages, showing that Fatima is truly a universal call to the union of peoples under Mary's maternal gaze. Miracles continue to be reported through Our Lady of Fatima's intercession. Many receive physical healings, others spiritual, and some experience profound conversions, utterly changing the course of their lives. Devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, one of Fatima's central messages, has grown immensely. Today it is promoted by congregations, Marian movements, and even episcopal conferences in various countries. Numerous nations have been consecrated to the Immaculate Heart, recognizing that only under Mary's protection can one hope for a future of true peace, founded on the justice and truth of Christ. The practice of the first Saturdays, earnestly recommended by Our Lady, is gaining new momentum, especially among the young who rediscover in Marian reparation a profound sense of faith and mission. In times of aggressive secularism, where faith is often ridiculed or sidelined, Fatima shines as a beacon of orthodoxy and trust in the power of prayer. The rosary, a peaceful yet powerful weapon, becomes an instrument of spiritual combat. Our Lady presented it as an effective means for world peace, conversion, and strengthening of families. Fatima's Marian devotion is not isolated but fully integrated into Catholic spirituality. It always points to Jesus, the center of Christian faith, and invites fidelity to the gospel. Thus, Fatima has become a school of spirituality, teaching how to live faith with simplicity, to suffer with meaning, to trust amid tribulation, and never to lose hope. The example of the shepherd children continues to illumine paths. Francisco teaches silent adoration, Jacinta inspires compassion for sinners, and Lucia shows the value of persevering hidden witness. In every historical epoch, Fatima's message acquires new urgency. In times of war, crises of faith, attacks on natural and Christian morality, Fatima emerges as heaven's providential response. Our Lady's requests are simple yet demanding. Pray the rosary daily, do penance, repair sins, and consecrate oneself to her Immaculate Heart. These are paths that lead to true peace. Fatima's spirituality calls for sacrifice offered with love. Every suffering, great or small, can be redemptive when united to Christ's cross, as the shepherd children did. The Church's documents reinforce this vision. The Magisterium recognizes Fatima as one of the principal Marian interventions in modern history, uniting mysticism, prophecy, and doctrine. Many saints and mystics of the 20th and 21st centuries deeply venerated Our Lady of Fatima, such as Saint Padre Pio, who often recommended praying the rosary and spoke of the seriousness of her messages. Fatima is also a call to Christians' responsibility in the world. It is not enough to pray. One must live coherently, witness to the faith, defend truth, and form new generations in the light of the gospel. The silence of Cova da Iria speaks louder than many discourses. It invites us to listen to God, to let Mary form us within, as she formed Christ, and to walk confidently toward her. Each apparition, every word spoken by the Virgin, every gesture of the children is a living catechesis, a lesson of love, a maternal cry of warning and tenderness that continues to echo. Contemplating Our Lady of Fatima, we see not merely a historical figure, but a living presence that continues to intercede, guide, and protect all who entrust themselves to her maternal care. And so the legacy of Fatima endures, a call from heaven voiced by a mother, a hope for dark times, a reminder that in the end, as Mary promised, my immaculate heart will triumph.